Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Worth a Listen. I am your host, Chris Haney, and it is episode 2 in our 5-part journey through entrepreneurship. Joining me again is Joseph Arriola, where he's going to talk a little bit more about the logistics of starting that business all the way up into grand opening. Hey, Joseph, thanks for coming back. How you doing?
Good.
Good. So when we left off, you kind of gave me that really powerful moment of that son who came into your store, and I really love that. But I want to go into a little bit finer details in this session. I want to talk about logistics. I want to talk about kind of those back end things as our listeners are daydreaming about owning their own business, and we've kind of given them those stories of the feel good. I want to talk about what they're not going to see, what happens on the back end. So the first thing I really want to know is, what are some of the things that you had to decide first after you spoke to your wife and you said, and y'all both said, hey, let's do it. What were the first steps you took?
Really doing a lot of research, whether it was industry research. We visited game stores all across the state. Anytime we would leave town, we go to Dallas, we go to Austin. That was on our to-do list, was find any game stores we could, go visit these game stores.
Why?
We wanted to get a feel for, what are these game stores doing? Are they doing anything that makes them unique? We've made good friends with a game store owner down in Killeen, so we were able to kind of pick his brain. I reached out to another game store owner out in California, got to have a great call with him, got to pick his brain. And so really just doing a lot of research and kind of talking to people, figuring out what the ins and outs are. How does distribution work? How do the organized play programs work? Kind of getting an idea of, okay, what are the milestones, so to speak, that we need to be looking for?
Okay, so let's dig into some of those. Let's talk about your funding and your operating capital. Obviously, you may have had some money saved up, but to open up a retail establishment, you're going to have some upfront money, right? So how did you consider, what did you do as far as operating capital?
So I actually had a lot of equity in my house. So I own my own home. And so I was able to take some equity out of the house to get the capital put together to start the business.
That's a big risk.
Yeah.
So you would say, as a small business owner, one of the biggest risks is that startup and where you're getting that startup money from.
Yeah, because whether or not you've saved the money up, whether or not you're taking out a small business loan, you're taking equity out of a house, it doesn't matter. It's a risk because it could all be for nothing, or you could turn this into something great. So,
well, you had some inventory. I know last time we talked about you being a shark on the playground and selling cards to kids, down the slide. So I'm assuming you had some inventory of product before you opened your retail shop.
Yeah. So before we opened the brick and mortar store, we were selling online for probably a year and a half.
Okay. And
in that time frame, we were collecting sealed product. And it was kind of funny because while I was doing that, it wasn't with the intention of, okay, a year and a half from now, we're going to open a brick and mortar shop. It was more just because we could. We would get sealed product, we would open half of it. It would be the new sets. We would sell it at set release and kind of rinse and repeat. We would do that every couple of months with the different sets. And so when it came time to open the brick and mortar shop, I think we had probably 15,000 in sealed inventory just stashed away.
Okay. And so, I guess that was part of your online business. So you started your business online first. You raised a little bit of money, decided to take the big risk and open up a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Employees?
Yeah. So we have 2 full-time employees plus myself, plus my fiance. She helps out whenever she can, really whenever she wants to. That's the bigger thing. She does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff though. So she does all of our social media campaigns. She designs all our graphics. We're very prideful when it comes to the art we use, because we know that art and artists in the community are really important to the games, right?
Sure.
And so we don't want to use AI generated art for any of our advertising that we do. So she does all of that stuff.
Okay. And so the I guess your logo, was that something she created?
No. So actually we had that freelanced from a real artist.
Okay. And how did you choose Northstar Games?
So the name is an interesting story. So when I was in high school, again, I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. When I was in high school, one of my classmates and we decided we wanted to open a web design business. Now, remember, this is the late 90s. Websites weren't a thing in the late 90s. And everybody thought we were crazy because we would go to these small businesses locally and say, we want to build you a website. We called ourselves Northstar Designs.
Okay.
And so whenever I started doing the singles, like the online sales, I said, let's reuse that name and let's say Northstar.
Bring back a relic from the past. Okay.
So it was Northstar Collectibles is kind of where that evolved to. And then when we opened the brick and mortar shop, we moved to Northstar Games because that felt more kind of pointed as far as we're a game store. We're not necessarily a collectibles store. I mean, obviously card games are collectibles, but like we're catering to the players, not necessarily only the collectors.
Okay. So you took that big risk and took that second mortgage out. Did you do anything else other than that for operating capital and I guess for funding?
No.
Okay.
No,
that was it.
That was it. Plus, the funds that the kind of online side hustle, so to speak, had already been generating. And that was all it was.
Okay. And so you've been open brick and mortar for almost a year now?
Yeah. So April 1st.
Okay.
Everybody, when we put that out there, everybody said, "Is that an April Fool's joke?" And we said, "No, we're not joking. We're opening a brick and mortar as of April 1st."
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super great. I hear the first year is kind of the most stressful year. Once you make it past that first year hump, it's not that it's downhill, but it gets a lot easier. Or do you feel safer making it to a year?
Safer is an interesting way to put it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say safer.
How would you put it?
We'll go back to the first year. Let's talk about the first year because
Sure.
here's where this comes into reality, where people say the first year is always the toughest. And that's because you have so much startup cost. When we moved into the retail space that we have, we had to get a sign that met the standards for the landlord. And so the sign by itself was several $1,000s just to have a sign with our name on it.
Wait, and you're telling me the landlord gave you specifications.
Mm-hmm.
Your size must fit XYZ dimensions, cannot have this, and that.
Yeah, so the sign that we have, very specific, it's called channel lettering. If anybody out there is listening, knows anything about commercial signage, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not the cheapest. Okay. It's not an LED sign. It's not super expensive, but it's definitely not what we were originally thinking. We were thinking we would just get, a square sign that had the logo on it and the name, and we'd be done. No. So it's a very nice sign. It matches the rest of the aesthetic for the rest of the shopping center. So that's why the landlord had the specifics there.
Gotcha. You said something earlier that kind of I want to follow back around to. You talked about the previous to opening up your brick and mortar. You said you had a side hustle of selling cards online. Why do you call it a side hustle?
Because I actually still have a full-time job. so I have a full-time job and run the game store.
So you work at two different places.
Yes.
You put a 40-hour work week at one job, and then you roll around and put how much at your shop?
When I'm counting, it's 30 to 40.
Okay.
It's been upwards of 50 sometimes.
Wow. So as a small business owner, one of the things that you have to come to terms with is this isn't just a 40-hour work week. This is almost maybe everything you do or a large majority of what you do during your day, during your, I'm going to say off time because you have, one job. So your off time is actually your work time for your other job. When do you sleep?
At some point, very little, but,
okay.
But the idea is as a small business owner, if your business doesn't consume you to a certain extent, then you should be asking yourself, are you dedicated enough to it? Now, if you can do your small business and you can do it in 10, 20 hours a week, maybe that's because you've been doing it for so long, or maybe because you're just making that kind of money. That's fantastic. But owning a retail shop with other employees, with, you know, the hours that we have, I mean, we're open until midnight on Friday and Saturday. Those are going to be some long days for sure, for sure.
So I know you said your fiance is one of the employees, but you have two other full-time employees. Did you have to reach out? Did you know them beforehand? Or was this something where you had to stick an ad on Indeed and have them apply in?
Thankfully, I knew them ahead of time.
Okay.
So we already had some trust and some rapport, and that has made life a lot easier. As we move into kind of 1 year and beyond, now one of the next things that we're going to be exploring is adding headcount. And we're all kind of afraid of that because we're all friends basically, and we all know each other. And so now we're going to have to try to
bringing that one more person into that close knit. I would say y'all call yourselves a family. Y'all feel family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So bringing someone into that close knit family is kind of hard. You know, let's talk about that, especially specifically for your game store. I'm assuming you can hire pretty much anybody, but you really want to maybe be a little bit of selective about who you employ.
Oh yeah. And I wouldn't say that you can't. I mean, obviously anybody can do whatever they want. So if you're a business owner, you technically can hire whoever you want. When it comes to owning a game store and hiring for a game store, we need people that are going to be passionate about the games. They don't have to be passionate about all the games, but at least one of them. They kind of need to be honed in on it. That needs to be their specialty, so to speak. They need to be able to speak about the games. They need to be able to engage with the customers when they come in and they ask questions about the games. And so if we have somebody that doesn't play games, doesn't know anything about games, they may be there on time every day. They may be super nice, but they may just not be a good fit. And so that's something that we're kind of battling with internally, is how do we find that balance?
Do you have your regular customers?
Oh yeah.
Who are like, hey, can I work here? Do
you
get that often?
We've had a few. Of course, we've had a few kids come in, and I say kids because they're younger than me, but we've had some kids come in and, you know, hand me their resume and, hey, like I'm out of school for the summer and I would love a job. And I'm like, that's awesome. Unfortunately, right now we're still growing, so we can't really afford it. But again, moving into the next year, that's one of the goals, is to add another body. So
yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that my son is kind of a gamer, little nerd himself. When he turned 17, he was looking for work. And so I sent him over to our local game shops to go look for work. Well, he didn't really pick up the Magic and Pokemon. He's collected some, but never really knew how to play. And he wasn't versed in the language. They did not hire him, and they called him and they told him, look, we really liked you, but you don't understand and know the games that we sell. It would be hard for you to engage with our customer base and actually perform what we need you to do in this job. And so I get it. I understand. You know, if you can't speak the lingo, you probably shouldn't be working for a company, a store that you need to know the lingo for.
mm-hmm.
You know, I think about our audience who or possibly would think about opening up small businesses. And, you know, even me, I at times I think, oh, I could do that. But, you know, you are the expert here. You know what we don't know. What are some of those things that you know now that you wish you would have known then?
Specifically with a local game store, one of the things I wish I would have known, it would have saved me just a lot of frustration, is how tenuous the relationship is with the distributors. Because
unpack that for us.
Well, like everything that you're allowed to buy is based on how much you've bought before. And so it sounds very counterintuitive, because on one hand, they're saying, well, this new set that's coming out, you can't buy any because you've never bought any of that product before. And then logically your brain says, well, if I can't buy any, how am I supposed to buy any so I can buy some in the future? And so you have to understand that is going to take time.
Well, hold up. Wait a minute. What you're telling me is I can't just call up XYZ distributor, say, hey, I opened up a game shop. I need to stock my shop with product.
No.
Okay.
No. The process isn't hard. It's not that it's hard, but most distributors, you have to be an established business. They want to see pictures of your shop. They want to see, of course, they want to see all your business documentation to make sure you're legitimate, but they want to see pictures of your shop. They want to see that you're actually in business. They do this because they try to protect themselves. They don't want, me and you to go along and say, oh yeah, like we're a business and we're just going to go buy all of our stuff from a distributor and we can just get it cheaper that way. They want to make sure that people are actually in business to sell the product, not just trying to get it for themselves.
So how do you start those relationships? I guess you don't have a Yellow Pages to go call the distributors. You've got to formulate those. Where do you go find them?
One place you can start is whenever you join any organized play program for a game manufacturer. So Wizards of the Coast, again, that's who makes Magic the Gathering. Their organized play program is called Wizards Play Network. When you join that, again, you've got to be open for business, but whenever you join that, they will give you a list of kind of their partner distributors that they work with directly. And so then, I don't want to say you've got an in, but if you're already part of WPN, you're already part of the organized play program, then the distributors look at you a little bit differently because you've already kind of proven yourself to Wizards that you're legitimately selling things and legitimately providing a play space. So they make things a little bit easier. But that's one place you can start. Of course, you can just Google search all these distributors up, reach out to them. Most of them have online
Like
application.
contact me at xyzcompany.com.
Yeah, you can go in and submit an online application to start a relationship with them. So
how did that start for you?
We started with just one distributor, one main distributor for sealed product. We're also partnered with two other distributors. They're manufacturers for direct product. So think things like dice and storage boxes, things like that. Right now we're up to 5 different distributors for sealed product. And then we've still got those 2 on the side for kind of ancillary accessories. But really trying to grow that, right? At the end of the year, I looked at our total spend for across all of our distributors. Our first distributor is, of course, the one we've spent the most with. 58% of all of our spend for the year went to that distributor. Number 2 was 27%. And then it tapered off very quickly after that. It was something like 12 and then 4 and then 3. And I wanted to know that because I want to then go have conversations with the reps and say, hey, last year, especially the ones on the bottom of the list, hey, we only spent 3% of our total spend with you guys last year. What can we do to kind of bump that number up? I'd love to spend more money with your company.
So you kind of use that negotiation piece back and forth. Hey, I spent 58% of my product I got through you. I'd like to get a little bit more this year. And is it a month-to-month basis? Do you engage with these folk on a daily basis, yearly, weekly? How often are you trying to, I guess, enhance your vendor relationships or your distributor relationships?
It really just depends. It depends a lot on the rep that you get with each individual distributor. Our main distributor, I love our rep. He's fantastic. He used to be a game store owner himself. So if you've got questions, like he's always told me, if you have any questions, even on just the store side, to call him, he'll answer questions. He's super responsive. And so anytime I've asked him, hey, can you try to squeeze us a few extra boxes or a few extra cases? I can always tell genuinely he's really trying. He's trying to do what he can. Whereas some of the other distributors, we didn't spend a lot of money with them. So in their eyes, as a salesman, and I get it, there's nothing wrong with this. As a salesman, they're thinking, well, they didn't spend a lot of money with us, so I don't really need to go out of my way for them. And so that's kind of something I didn't realize it was going to be like that before we started this. I thought it was going to be, I'm going to call them. They're going to say, oh, of course we'll sell you this. Now I knew allocation was a thing, but I didn't realize how strong of a uphill battle that is sometimes.
Let's see. Um, so outside of distribution, you mentioned a lot of things, and I guess it's kind of unique to the game store, the collectible stores where you have to enter in organized play network
Mhm.
to even be considered for distribution. What exactly is an organized play network, and how is that unique to a game store?
Well, just to clarify, you don't have to be part of organized play to get distributor
Okay.
relationships, but it helps.
What is
Um,
organized play?
so organized play, so all the game manufacturers, whether it's Wizards of the Coast, whether it's Pokemon International, Bandai is who makes One Piece and Gundam and a few other games. Those game manufacturers, they want people to play their games, right? And so you can sign up for their own organized play programs. Each manufacturer has a different one. And what you're telling that game manufacturer is, hey, I'm going to sell your product, but I'm also going to host events for your product, because the events is really what drives the community. We could if we were just a single kiosk and people just walked up and bought sealed product, I mean, could we survive? Probably, but the bigger part of the game store is the experience and coming in and playing with your friends and having these fun events. Whenever you join one of these organized play networks, organizations, whatever you want to call it, programs, you're committing to running events to a certain level. Whether that means you have to follow a certain schedule, you have to follow certain formats. But in doing that, most of the time, you're going to get something back. So you're going to get marketing materials, you're going to get posters, you're going to get promo cards, you're going to get prizing for events. Pokemon is really big on providing prize packs for organized play. And they do some, on the store level, we'll do bigger tournaments called Pokemon League Cups. And on a League Cup, Pokemon actually provides prizing for all the age divisions.
Well,
And
that's
so,
fantastic.
yeah,
So you don't have to, and that's part of being in the network. So you
mhm.
don't have to come up and decide what prizes you're going to give. But I'm assuming you at the store will still give
Oh
extra
yeah.
prizes to
Oh yeah.
to get that traffic in. Um, what's another thing that you wish you would have known outside of distribution?
Commercial realty is a beast all in and of itself.
Okay, what do you mean?
A lot of people assume that when you're renting a commercial property, that is just like if you're renting a house, and that's not the case. You're responsible for all the upkeep, all the maintenance, changing the air filters. You know, if the AC goes down, most of the time, don't get me wrong, there's probably some commercial properties out there where it's all upkeep by the landlord, but for the most part, you're responsible for everything. One of the very first things that happened before we even moved in was my dad was at the shop. He was helping out, and we didn't have the electricity turned on yet. So we were
Okay.
we were waiting for the city inspector. It was a crazy day, and he had the front door propped open, and the wind caught it and blew and shattered the front window.
Oh
So we're
no.
like, we don't have the electricity on, and he's already broke a window. So
So those hidden costs are
mhm.
always something that you didn't know before how much hidden costs were going to be stuck in there. Yeah, I can also think of things like emergencies happen just out of the blue. Maybe you're finishing up a tournament one night, and all of a sudden, somewhere two, 3 blocks down the road, runs into an electrical pole, and you've got 40 people in your shop with no power on, trying to finish up what they're doing.
That's never happened. I
This
don't know.
never happened before. I believe it's happened once. But those type of things, those anomalies, those are things that you have to think about, right?
Mhm.
What kind of contingencies do you have in place, or do you even have contingencies in place for things like that?
Well, for the power outage specifically, that did happen on a Friday night at, I don't know, 10:30 or whatever time that was that happened. It was kind of funny because everybody, all the players, they just pulled out their phones and turned on their flashlights, and they were content to continue playing in the dark. One of the customers was even like, "Oh, this just reminds me of a sleepover when I was a kid." I was like,
That's a testament to the community of nerds.
yeah, in a loving
A very
fashion.
loving vibe. I see. I see. I want to head back to your vendors and your distributors for a few minutes. Um, relationships are probably something that is super important in small business ownership, and relationships with distributors and vendors is paramount to making the store successful. Can you give me kind of just an example or an experience you had with a vendor that kind of makes that moment come to full circle?
Mm, that's hard to say. Because again, building the relationships with vendors it's such a dance. It's back and forth. It's, we got to make sure that we're getting what we can to support the business while still understanding that these are other businesses that we're dealing with. Now we're their customers. And so we kind of expect a certain level of service. But at the same time, it's a business relationship. So that's a hard one.
That is a hard one. Well, let's ask you this. You've got advice. You're an expert. You've been doing this for a while, and you've had your mind of entrepreneurship since school, since middle
Since
school.
kindergarten. Yeah.
Since kindergarten. Well, what advice would you give those similar situated who are sitting here being like, well, maybe I want to start my own business? What advice would you give them?
Just from a general standpoint, I would say whatever you're going to do, whatever industry it is, make sure you research it first, that you truly have an understanding. I would never, let me think of something like just crazy and wild. I would never go open a plumbing store because I don't know anything about plumbing. I know it all goes underground, and I think it all goes underground, but that's
Sometimes.
why I would never open a plumbing store. And so you always want to make sure that it's something you know about or that you can learn about. Definitely something you want to be passionate about. One of the things that everybody says when you talk to them about opening a game store, they'll say, well, be ready to not play games. And that's true because you've got a business to run and you're there to work and you're there to make sure your customers are having a good time. And so if you think that opening a game store is, man, I'm going to be able to open a game store and I can be there and I can play games and I can make money. Well, you're going to be there and you're going to make money,
but
you're not playing games.
Well, obviously you've got work to do. And if you want your business to be successful, like you said, you got to be passionate about it.
Mm-hmm. So once you've got it kind of honed in on what industry you want to do, what your business is going to do, you're going to provide a service, or you're going to sell cheeseburgers, whatever it is you're going to do, then you want to start researching things around business, let's say business documentation. So you want to establish your legal entity. So whether you're going to be a sole proprietorship, or you're going to be an LLC, so a limited liability corporation, are you going to be a corporation? And then you get into, are you going to be an S corp? Are you going to be a C corp? You get really far down the rabbit
We'll get
hole.
into the weeds. That's a whole nother episode.
Exactly. But you do want to figure that out. Do some basic research. There's a lot of online resources out there that can give you some basic understanding of the different structures for business. Then you need to go build or kind of file the paperwork, create that business entity. Anybody can file the paperwork. I will tell everybody right now, all the listeners out there will be sites out there. They'll say, oh, we'll file your business paperwork for you. You can create a business and it's only $2,000. The filing fee for the paperwork is not $2,000. Okay. If you can print out the paper and you can hold the pen and fill it out, trust me, do it yourself. You don't need somebody else to do it for you for some crazy amount of money. You want to just make sure you've got the business lined out from a legal entity standpoint. You want to have it lined out because that's what makes you official. So when you start talking to vendors and you start talking to other businesses and you're trying to get your commercial property set up, you want to be able to show documentation. We're legitimate. Here's our actual business paperwork. So you want to start looking at that. Let's say if you're doing retail, right? Then you want to start talking about or thinking about what do you want your shop to look like? And I say look like from a literal and figurative standpoint. So I spent some time on a 3D floor planner. There's plenty of 3D floor planners out there on the internet that are free. So when we were going around and we were looking at commercial properties, we got one of the super cheap laser measurement devices off of Amazon. So we would take very precise measurements, as precise as we thought they were. And then I would put that into the 3D floor planner and I would start putting layouts and, okay, well, this is how many tables we could fit into this space, and this is how long the counter space could be. And that also played a big role in deciding which location we went with.
Okay.
But also, I looked at different things. We looked at multiple different point of sale systems. We were on multiple demo calls for Square and for Lightspeed and for there's so many of them. Like, I don't remember the name of them all, but they're all out there, right? And we had a common set of questions that we would ask on every demo. And we would say, you know, how does your system handle store credit? How does your system handle this? How does your system handle pre-sales? Because knowing that we're in the local gaming community, those things are big. Store credit's big, pre-sales are big. And so we wanted to see, how does this system handle that? And so, again, we wanted to do a lot of research, because the more research you do, the better educated you can be. It's going to save you a lot of headaches in the long run. It's going to help keep your books more organized. So like, for example, a little plug for Lightspeed. We went with Lightspeed POS for our point of sale. It's a fantastic system. Tracks customers, not literally tracks customers. Y'all calm down. It tracks your store credit. It'll track your loyalty. So we have an in-store loyalty program. It tracks inventory. It makes my life easier when it comes time to do the sales tax reporting, the end of year tax reporting, inventory reporting. All of that is all built into that system. So I wanted to spend a little bit more money to get that, rather than, oh, we're just going to keep inventory on paper. I know there's stores out there that do that. And if y'all do that and it works for you, hats off to you. I personally don't.
Well, we live in a digital world, so.
Well, I know I don't have time to do that. So,
well, I was just thinking as you were talking, it's like you're doing all this research, you're making all these decisions, you're looking at different locations, but you have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. So this is above and beyond what you're even doing in an office setting. That's fantastic, and that's a testament to your passion about what you do. Did you just kind of throw a dart at the map and say, hey, that's where Northstar's going?
Much more elegantly.
Okay.
Much more elegantly. So the kind of lead up to day one of opening the shop, it was about a 6-month process. And we were on a very hard search for location for the last 4 months of that.
Okay.
And we were getting pretty close to the wire. We had narrowed it down to 2 different spots. And the key considerations that we were looking for is high traffic areas. So whenever you're looking at commercial properties, you can always get the traffic statistics. You can get population statistics of the area. So we wanted high traffic. We wanted it to be a neighborhood friendly area. So we didn't want it in a huge industrial area or a huge commercial area, like I think like downtown.
Sure.
We didn't want that. We wanted it to be closer to neighborhoods. We wanted to make sure it had ample parking. We wanted it to be walking distance for food, and just general good vibes, right? Like, so we wanted it to be in a good neighborhood where people would want to come visit. And so we had 2 different spots that we were looking at. One of them was cheaper. The square footage of the space was a little bit smaller, but not by much. But the parking lot for the shopping center was very small.
Okay.
There was a martial arts studio that was next door. They had actually just expanded to take over 2 units. And so here's something else. When you're going to look at these properties, drive by, look at the parking during what you would expect your peak periods to be.
At different times of the day.
Different times of the day. And so we would drive by on Friday and Saturday nights to see, okay, what does the parking lot situation look like? Because if we're going to be in a shopping center, obviously we want to be good working neighbors with the neighboring businesses. And if we're having to compete over parking, well, then that's probably not the place for us.
Did you, that other location, did you worry whether or not you were going to hear like kung fu noises in your shop as?
No, that's a good point though.
Noise?
Although our current neighbor is a digital golf place, and they have a very nice stereo system in there. I'll say that. And probably a lot of our players can attest to this, that they have a very nice stereo system.
So you can kind of feel it maybe sometimes.
Yeah, you can feel it sometimes.
So Joseph, give us kind of that final advice that you have for our listeners and for them to follow, I guess.
If I had to boil it down to like just kind of a final thing, it's if you want to start a business, if you want to start a local game store, really like you just want to strike out on your own, you want to see how this is going to go. The best piece of advice I can give you is be comfortable being uncomfortable, because there's going to be a lot of times where something's not going to go the way that you want it to go. And you have to be okay with that. And it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be upset. But as the business owner, number one, you've got to keep it moving forward. You can't let the customer see that. It's not their fault that a delivery was late. It's not their fault that you weren't able to get more product. It's not your employee's fault of any of that. So you've just got to find the groove and just float there and just keep it moving forward and find the positives. I mean, there's plenty of positives being a business owner. You know, when we first had our first magic artist come to the shop, I have a picture of us. I say us, so it's me, the artist, and then our two other employees out in front of the shop, and we all look so dog tired because it's the end of the day. It was the first big thing we had done, and when I look back at that, I'm like, man, we were crazy back then, but we're probably gonna continue to be crazy, and that's okay. Like we're just gonna keep going, and we're always looking for those little shiny moments, the little kids that want to sit down and play games with us. I'm also a Pokemon professor, and so on our Pokemon nights, people always want to play with the Pokemon professor, and so I try to kind of revel in that a little bit. And
You're like the gym leader, gym master is what they're called?
no, I'm actually a Pokemon professor. That's
nice.
the official vernacular.
That's okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I'm a judge, but
Okay.
that's the official term for a Pokemon judge is. I mean, there's different levels, but I am an official Pokemon professor.
Wow. So follow your passion. Make sure you're passionate about it. You can do it. Don't panic.
Oh,
Expect to be uncomfortable.
Bring a towel. You know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like it's gonna go wrong, but that's okay. Just, you know, make the best out of it.
I hear you. Well, there you have it, folks. Joseph, I want to thank you again for coming on and kind of sharing your story about small business ownership. I hope our listeners really got a lot out of it. And for folks at home, take that chance. Partner up with somebody. Follow your passion. Don't be afraid to open up that business. There's going to be people to help you along the way. But again, as Joseph said, make sure you expect to be uncomfortable. Well, there you have it again, folks. Thanks for coming out. I hope today was worth your time. Hey, thanks again for joining us for the second episode of a 5-part series of Worth a Listen while we journey through the entrepreneurship experience. Join us next episode as we bring on a leader in the commercial lending industry to talk about how to secure that capital investment for your business. Join us.